You're the reason my son is dead. None of this would have happened if he hadn't stolen my motorcycle. Sighs. I hate even having to say those words. And as much as it tears at me to admit, some nights I lie awake knowing he brought it on himself. But I carry no guilt, not today. Not ever. Because I know exactly where my hands were and exactly what they never laid a finger on. None of this began out of rage or a desire for payback. It began purely by chance. I was restless, passing the hours, standing beneath flickering fluorescent lights at a Saturday auction when a Harley was wheeled out onto the floor. Its chrome gleamed like it already knew the damage it would cause. I hadn't been looking for it. I hadn't planned on it. Still, my hand went up with the paddle anyway. Welcome back to channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're here for the best HOA drama around. Riding it home into the neighborhood, everything felt off. Blinds shifted at windows. Jaws dropped. People gawked as if I'd brought a beast through their peaceful streets. The engine ran quiet and steady, nothing like the roaring menace they'd pictured. I pulled in, wiped down my hands, and let myself grin, until I heard someone jogging up behind me. It was Billy, Karen's boy. Same piercing stare, same sense of entitlement, only younger and messier about it. He forced out a congratulations through gritted teeth, then confessed he'd been at that same auction. That bike had been his dream, he claimed. He'd saved for it, dreamed about riding it, pictured himself owning it. I'd simply outbid him by seconds, and that tiny margin fractured something inside him. He tried to brush it off with a forced laugh, circling the bike a little too closely, fingers hovering over it as though it already belonged to him. He fired off questions that weren't really questions at all. What's its top speed? What did you spend on it? Do you even ride? I answered him civilly, because in that moment he seemed like nothing more than a sore loser, not yet a red flag. Eventually he walked off, but the glance he threw back wasn't disappointment. It was something colder. Calculation. Before we go further, tell us in the comments what city or country you're tuning in from. We're curious just how far this story has traveled. 3 days after the Harley had already become neighborhood legend, Karen finally came down off her porch like a storm cloud, clipboard in hand. She skipped the pleasantries. She announced herself, said my name like it left a bad taste, then jabbed a finger at the bike as though it were poisoning her lawn. In her telling, motorcycles broke community harmony, wrecked the aesthetic balance, violated noise limits, and infringed on a string of rules she rattled off from memory, but never once produced in writing. I asked to see the actual document. She gave a tight smile and told me presidents didn't owe anyone an explanation. The timing wasn't exactly discreet. Billy was loitering across the street, pretending to be absorbed in his phone, catching every word. That's when it hit me. The auction, the stairs, the sudden resurrection of forgotten rules. I reminded Karen the Harley was registered, insured, inspected, and legally parked. She brushed that off entirely and promised there would be consequences, fines, notices, hearings, piling up. She said it all with a kind of satisfaction, like she'd practiced the speech in front of a mirror beforehand. From that point on, the harassment never let up. Undated warning slips began showing up on my door. Anonymous complaints claimed I'd been revving the engine at dawn, on days I wasn't even in town. One night, somebody loosened the cover, letting rain seep in and ruin the leather seat. Karen denied any involvement, all while implying she could make the trouble vanish if I'd just cooperate. Cooperating, of course, meant selling, ideally to a neighbor, ideally to her son. I turned her down calmly, again and again. That only made her dig in harder. She called an HOA meeting centered on dangerous machinery and paraded my Harley across a slideshow like some kind of villain. Neighbors I barely recognized nodded along, too afraid to become her next target. Billy circled back with fake friendliness, offering to take it off my hands cheap, saying things like, accidents happen to bikes that just sit around. His smile never made it to his eyes. I started keeping records, photos, timestamps, recordings of voices. Karen clocked the camera and eased off a little, shifting her approach instead. She switched to certified letters, each one sharper than the last. She wanted me worn down, cut off, pressured until I gave in. What she failed to understand was that pressure cuts both directions. Every move she made only tightened a snare she couldn't see forming, one strand at a time, patient and silent, waiting for the moment the weight would drop without warning. Then Saturday arrived, calm and deceptively still. I spent the morning washing the Harley myself, slow and deliberate, letting the suds run over the chrome as the sun climbed higher. It felt grounding, like shining a trophy Karen could never touch. I left it out in its usual spot to dry, in plain view from half the block. I went in, showered, brewed coffee, let the time slip by. When I walked back outside, the empty space where the bike should have been looked wrong. Like a missing tooth, you can't stop poking with your tongue. I circled the spot once, then again. My chest clenched. The Harley was gone. I didn't panic right away. I checked around corners, walked the length of the block, hoping maybe it had been towed over some invented infraction. Neighbors wouldn't meet my eyes until one older man finally admitted he'd spotted Billy near the bike earlier, helmet tucked under his arm. Someone else mentioned hearing an engine peel off. Rough, clumsy, unfamiliar. That's when my composure snapped. I didn't dial the police just yet. Instinct told me to check something first. I pulled up my security footage and watched the truth unfold frame by frame. Billy strolled up like he owned the place, glanced around, then crouched down. No keys in his hand, just wires. He hotwired the bike with more confidence than sense, nearly dropped it starting the engine, then burst out laughing. Laughing, he roared off down the street, swerving, gunning the throttle far past what he could actually control. I walked straight to Karen's front door. She opened it already on the defensive, as if she'd been expecting me. I told her flatly that her son had stolen my bike. She erupted, called me a liar, insisted Billy wasn't a criminal, just a misunderstood kid chasing a dream. She insisted I should cut him some slack, said young men test boundaries, called me cold-hearted for standing in the way of his happiness. Mid-rant, her phone started buzzing. Her face went pale before she even answered. A hospital was calling. A wreck, a motorcycle involved, injuries described as severe. We took separate cars but ended up arriving almost together. Red and blue lights washed over the pavement. The Harley sat mangled in the road, twisted metal barely recognizable, ripped apart like it had been made to pay for something. Billy lay on a gurney, covered in blood, drifting in and out of consciousness, while paramedics worked over him fast and tense, fear written across their faces. Karen shrieked his name, straining to get to him. I just stood there, locked in place, watching what happens when arrogance collides with horsepower nobody had earned the skill to handle. Some part of me already understood this moment would break everything that followed. Billy didn't survive the night. The doctors described the trauma as catastrophic. Internal injuries piled on top of shattered bones, speed multiplied by a total lack of experience. By sunrise, word had spread through the street. By noon, Karen had already decided her grief needed somewhere to land, and she pointed it straight at me. She insisted I had baited her son, that keeping the Harley anywhere near him counted as provocation, that owning it made me responsible for what happened to him. She filed suit before the funeral was even arranged, brandishing those HOA letters like they were legal gospel, treating them as proof of wrongdoing. The courtroom pulled back every curtain she'd hidden behind. My surveillance footage, her threats, the falsified notices, neighbors who finally spoke once their fear wore off. The judge sat through it patiently as Karen's story fell apart piece by piece, cutting herself off, tangling her own timeline, accusing people who hadn't even been present. Billy's history came out quietly alongside it all. Unpaid fines, past thefts, a pattern of recklessness. The hot wiring counted, consent counted, ownership counted. Grief didn't get to rewrite the facts. The lawsuit crumbled under its own contradictions. Karen never went to prison, but the ruling stripped away every bit of her authority. She was removed from her HOA position, hit with civil penalties, and ordered to pay damages with no way to escape them. Her standing in the neighborhood collapsed faster than that bike ever had. People stopped glancing away when she passed. Now they looked straight at her, finally seeing the true cost of power left unchecked. I didn't gloat. I did what I could to heal and sold off what remained of the wreck. The Harley was gone for good. But something else took place. Quiet, accountability, a stillness where fear used to live. Karen faded into the background, smaller, avoided, no longer someone people feared. Her control had always run on noise, and the court finally silenced it. Some nights, I still hear that engine in my mind, that first peaceful ride home, before jealousy curdled into obsession. I know I'm not responsible for the choice Billy made. I know sorrow doesn't get to bend the truth. This was never about revenge. It was consequence showing up right on time, unmoved by excuses. The end. Like and subscribe for more HOA showdowns like this one. Do you think she got what she deserved? Let us know in the comments.